Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Founding Without Funding podcast. This is episode 6. My name is Kyle Hiersche. I'm the founder of Founder Without Funding and the author. And today we are going to talk a little bit about questions that people have. So yesterday I answered some questions that came in. People seem to like it. I got a lot of great feedback on that. And so we'll do some more questions here today. And next week I'm going to have some guests on. But while we're here, with just me, might as well answer some more questions that are coming in. Now, we do stream this live every day at noon Eastern time. And we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Kick, Twitch, all that kind of good stuff. So make sure to tune in, and you can actually drop some comments. So I can see all the comments no matter what platform you put them on. I can see them pop up on the screen. So feel free to drop any live questions you have. And right now I have some questions that were sent in to my DMs by some people that we will go ahead and go through. And then again, if you're on here, you can feel free to drop any comments that you have, and I can answer them in real time for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into some questions here. So for those that don't listen to the podcast on a daily, Founding Without Funding, we're talking about being able to start your business, grow your business without necessarily needing funding from investors. And, you can get the book and the course at foundingwithoutfunding.com and go deeper into that. But let's answer some questions here that I received to my DM. So Maya is asking, Kyle, do you ever look back at your first business ideas and think, WTF was I doing? What was I doing? WTF was I even doing? So do I ever look back at my business and say, what the heck was I even doing? Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody does. At some point, whether it's like, how did I even believe that this would happen? Or why did I believe that this would happen and it didn't? There's a lot that you do wrong. I think I've done more than wrong. I think probably every successful entrepreneur has probably done more wrong than good, made more mistakes than they've made right choices. But at the end of the day, it's all about keeping going and consistency. And at the end of the day, learning from the mistakes. On the last episode, somebody asked me, what's the largest mistake that I made? What's the most costly? And it's not just the money. It's, the little mistakes may not cost as much, but they are an opportunity to grow. So all the time I look back and think, what the heck was I doing? And to tell you the truth, it's even more surreal when you're talking about businesses that actually succeeded, because you're like, what the heck was I even thinking? And somehow it worked out. That actually worked. What was I even thinking? So good question there, Maya. For me, I think it's a daily thing. I'll look back and say, what was I even doing to get this to work? And what was I even thinking that I thought this would work, right? And something that didn't. So yeah, that's a pretty common thought there. Let's see here. So KCV is asking, how many business owners are actually just winging it and praying it works out? Like 80%, 90%? I think to a certain extent, all business owners or entrepreneurs are winging it, especially in the beginning. And I don't think there's any problem with that. I think sometimes that's what you have to do. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have a plan. You want to make sure that it's written down. You have a budget of some kind, because again, we're talking about founding businesses without funding from outside investors. So we're not talking about getting a big budget from someone else. We're talking about make a small, scrappy budget that you can put together yourself. And so at the end of the day, I think a lot of owners or founders or entrepreneurs don't do that as much as they should at the start. And I think that that's important to do, but I also think it's even more important to actually do the things. So it goes back to what we talk about in the book, with one founder that goes out there and just starts doing things and making sales, and another founder who sits there and works on a pitch deck and spreadsheets with budgets and projections that don't really even exist yet. So there's a line between those. You definitely want to have something written down and a vision. But at the same time, you need to get out there and do things and move and being able to be flexible. There's a great quote that I heard from Jeff Bezos one time where he was saying, you need to be stubborn on your vision, but flexible on the details of how to get there. And that really resonated with me, right? You have to be very stubborn on where you're going, what you're trying to do, but you need to be flexible to move and change things in order to get there, because once you start, everything is going to change. So I would say there, Casey, that at the end of the day, we're all kind of winging it until we find something that works, and then we tune it in. But just because you're kind of winging it, especially when you're making a new business, especially if you've came up with a new product or new service, you're definitely kind of winging it and just seeing if somebody's going to purchase it or respond to it. It's just it's something that you want to do the action part, for sure. But you should also have some things written down. Great thing about now is use GPT. Tell GPT what you're trying to do and tell it to make you a business plan, and not necessarily a business plan to put in a pitch deck, but a plan on how to do what you're trying to do, or to lay it out for you in goals and steps. I mean, there's so many things at the click of a button that you can set up for yourself. So there's really no excuse. People would used to say, well, I didn't go to business school, so I don't know how to do that, or format it, or come up with it. I mean, you can just say into GPT or any AI, you can say the general layman's terms of what you're looking to do, and at the end of the day, it can and what you want it to come up with, and it will come up with it for you instantly. So there's definitely no excuse to not have a plan and a vision and something written down. But at the end of the day, I think to your question there, Casey, we're all winging it in some instances, especially in the beginning there. All right. Again, feel free to drop any questions you have there live. I can see questions and they pull up from all the different platforms. So go ahead and drop any questions you have. Let's see here. Next question is from Marshall. Are some founders delusional about their ideas? Is it necessary to be a little delusional to succeed? Yeah, I think it is. You need to be, I guess I wouldn't say delusional. I would say maybe a little crazy to succeed. I would say stay a little bit away from delusional, because delusional would be something like, to me, it'd be like looking at all of your statistics, looking at all of the data, and then still believing something else. So if we go back to testing an idea in the marketplace, getting it out in front of enough people, making sure they're followed up with, making sure it's in front of their face. If you've done all that to the extent that you need to where something should have happened and a sale should have happened, somebody should have responded to the product, the marketplace should have validated the product or service for you. If you do that enough and you're looking at the data over and over again, and the data is telling you that it's not working, then to keep doing it would, I think, be delusional. Now, to keep trying to accomplish the same goal is not delusional. You just need to accomplish it in a different way. So I would say that's kind of a great example of the difference between kind of a crazy founder that's crazy about their idea and willing to do anything and not stop, and somebody that's delusional would say, okay, I'm looking at this data, it's showing me these facts, and I'm still going to be delusional about it and keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. And that's just not going to happen. You can change the way you're doing the thing to get a different result, change the way you're going about it, change the product, change the offering, change the way you're advertising it, whatever you want to try. But definitely being delusional would be to say, okay, I see that nobody's buying this product. I see the market is not responding to this product. So, I'm going to keep just doing the same thing over and over. It's not going to work, right? All right, another question here from Trinity. Trinity is asking, why do people brag about working 16-hour days when half of it is busy work? Is hustle culture broken or just misunderstood? Great point there, Trinity. So, I do see a lot of people doing busy work that say that they're working long hours, but they're kind of just doing things, that are taking them a long time because they're doing it manually instead of doing things in an automated way. And so, yeah, I would say there, Trinity, some people are a little bit, doing busy work. At the end of the day, especially now with AI, you should not be doing any of that type of, busy work type stuff. You definitely should be making sure that you're using AI to do anything that you can. You should be using AI to start anything that you can, at least just get the bullet points down, the structure down, and then you can edit it from there. So there's really no reason, especially in 2025, to be doing things that are considered busy work, because not only can you have AI make all the documents for you and lay out everything like you need to, but you can have AI do most of the stuff, and it can even reach out to people or call people or email people, or you can have it do all kinds of things. So I think that basically there's no excuse to just be sitting there doing busy work anymore. Anything that used to be kind of quote unquote busy work should be completed by AI in minutes. And I do think that that's something that people confuse themselves with. They say they're a hustler, they say they're working hard. You can be working hard but not smart. You need to be doing both. You need to be working hard and smart. So I would say that working 16 hours a day using AI and using the different tools to your advantage, that would be hustling, right? But working 16 hours a day and not using AI or the tools or the automation, right? I mean, all your texts, all your emails, those should all be automated. If they're not, you need to get them automated. My company here, Digital Business Partner, can do that for you, but you need everything automated so that you're not even worrying about those type of things. If you're manually sending the texts and the emails as your leads come in and all that kind of stuff, then for sure, that's just busy work. Of course, 16 hours a day, because that's what it would take you to manually send all the text messages and emails. So you need to have all your systems set up. Everything needs to be moving automatically, systematically. And then you need to be using AI to your advantage as much as humanly possible, for sure. So yeah, a lot of people, just because you're motion doesn't mean that you're busy, right? It's just motion. At the end of the day, you need to be actually accomplishing things. And I think AI is the big eye opener to that. There's a great fact that I read in an article that said today, a manager that's proficient in AI and using it can get the same amount of work done as a manager in the same position that's not proficient in using AI with a staff of 20 people. So one manager that's proficient at using AI is equal to a manager and 20 employees under them not using AI proficiently. So that is an amazing stat right there, right? That's definitely something that we should be looking at and saying, okay, well, the number one thing, if I could replace 20 people, or, if you're not a bigger company, maybe you're a bigger company and you're saying, hey, I could save by reducing the staff and save 20 people, or maybe you're a smaller company, you could say, hey, I can all of a sudden have the same power as a team of 20 people. So in this year, particularly 2025, and now we're going into 2026, this is the year where you can have a huge advantage using AI because, again, if you're starting up your business and you're proficient at using AI, then you essentially have what would equal to be a team of 20 people, 5. So 5 years ago, you would need to somehow build your company up enough to hire 20 people to do all the work that you yourself now with AI. That's just amazing. So not only is it an amazing time to start your business in general, and an amazing time to be able to get out new products and services and testing them through, Meta and all this kind of stuff, but AI made it so that literally you could do the job of having 20 people on your staff now for free, as opposed to 5 years ago you'd have to build up a company, build up sales, and somehow hire those 20 people to get it done. One of the best examples of this is like a graphic design person. Shout out to all the designers out there. I don't mean to demean what you do, but you can now make your own designs. And so as an entrepreneur, especially for me, I absolutely love the fact that AI can allow you to design logos and ads and all this different stuff in 2 seconds, because that's one of the biggest hurdles that I always had as an entrepreneur trying to start new ventures and launch new businesses, is relying on a graphic designer and having to pay a graphic designer, because essentially everything you want to do has to be laid out in either a website or a landing page or an advertisement. Whatever it is, it's always going to involve graphics, and that has always been the biggest problem. How do things look good? So if you don't have a good graphic designer, it's not going to be the best presentation. And so with AI, not only can it make good graphics, but you can tell it the point of this graphic. I want this graphic to be a call to action to get people to click on this ad. Whatever it is, it's not only going to design something nice for you, but it's going to optimize that for whatever you're telling it to. And that's important to make sure you tell it what you're trying to accomplish when you're telling it what to design. That's a little AI tip there for you. So, you know, as a founder and somebody starting a business, you should absolutely be using AI to its fullest potential, and also using it to make your graphics, because you can try anything. You can test any idea. You can put up a landing page, a website, graphics, ads, all this kind of stuff, and you can drive people there and test the ideas. All of that all by yourself. You don't have to rely on having a budget for a graphic designer. You don't have to rely on having to wait on a graphic designer to do these things and hope that they have your same vision and then have them edit it and redo it. All that stuff is a thing of the past now. And that used to be one of my biggest barriers into starting something new, either starting a new business, or even more importantly, offering a new product or service within your business. The fact is, once your business is set up now, in 2025, you can launch any new product or service within that business instantly with 2 minutes, making some AI graphics for the ads and the landing page and stuff like that, and then running ads for it, getting people there, putting them through the funnel like we always talk about, all that kind of good stuff. It can all be done instantly without waiting on anybody, because you, as the founder and the visionary, now have the tool to make that happen right there in your hands. So it's an amazing time. And that's something that you should be taking full advantage of. So I guess, Trinity, to come back to your question, of why, people working 16 hours a day, half of it's busy work. I do agree that that is a problem for some people. And I would say that the biggest solution to it is to just evaluate what you're doing with your time and make sure and go through your day and say, hey, what am I doing right now that could be done with AI that I'm not using AI for? I would say that that's the biggest thing. All right, let's see here. Question from Gabe W. Is hiring friends and family always a mistake? Everyone online says don't do it. What do you think? Hey, that's a good question. I've made millions of dollars with friends and family, particularly family, and I've also lost some money and had some troubles in relationships because of it. I would say that there's really no right answer to that. It's just more so, just keep in mind what you're looking to do. And if it's your company, I would say your idea, if you're the one putting up all the money and stuff like that, just make sure you stay in control, I would say, and make sure that you have the proper control. I would say the biggest thing is if you're the one putting up the money and either other people aren't putting up as much money, or they're not, whenever it's time to put in more capital, they're not actually putting the money in. I would say just make sure that you stay in control and, stay in control of the of everything, just to make sure that you're going to be good and taken care of at the end of the day. If you're the one that's, I always say the money is really where it's at, right? Who's putting up the money? Who's willing to put up the money out of their own pocket, especially when we're talking about founding without funding. We're talking about doing without an investor, which means you're doing it yourself. And so any money that has to be spent has to come out of your pocket. So I would say, whether it's friends or family, make sure that, everybody's on the same page there, and just make sure that you use them for what they're best at. I don't mean use them as far as as a negative thing, but just make sure you know what that friend or family member is good at. Use them for that, and don't expect them to go so above and beyond everything. That's another reason why I say make sure you're still in control, make sure you have what you want and you need, because at the end of the day, you can't expect other people to go above and beyond, especially if it's your dream. So if you're a co-founder with somebody and it's evenly, the money is even, and you guys evenly came up with the idea and you're doing the work evenly, then it's really not an issue. But the problem arises when people don't put in money that they're supposed to, or people aren't willing to do the work that they're supposed to. And at the end of the day, you just have to accept that and know that, you are going to do your job. And at the end of the day, there's going to be friction and you're going to have to find a way past it. But again, the problem you'll get into is if you have no control and nobody else is doing their job or putting in the money, then you're going to be in a tough spot. All right. Question here. Again, feel free to drop any questions. They're live. We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, X, and all the different platforms. So drop your questions live if you have any. The next question here I have from Devon. Is having a co-founder actually overrated? Seems like half the time they break up like a bad relationship anyway. I guess kind of going back to the same thing that we just talked about. Having a co-founder is great as long as it's something that aligns. You want to make sure that it aligns. Don't get a co-founder that just happens to be your friend or family that has nothing to do with it, and you're just saying, "Hey, I'm starting a business. Do you want to do it with me?" You should already have in mind what that co-founder would bring to the table. Whether it's money, they could be the investor. Whether it's, even not them investing, but just knowing that they could come up with their 50% if you're going 50-50, knowing, hey, I know that, they'll put in the 1,000 when I put in the 1,000 so that we can do things. But make sure they have a purpose for it. And again, that there's something they're good at that they can contribute. It's almost not fair to just come to somebody and say, hey, start this business with me, and then all of a sudden expect them to go above and beyond and somehow bring something to the table miraculous and think about. But if somebody's in a certain role or somebody has a certain expertise or a certain background, then absolutely that's what you should be thinking about as a co-founder. But again, just make sure to stay on top of everything you're doing, and you can only control what you do. I've had some great co-founders, some not so great co-founders, and at the end of the day, you just have to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. All right, let's see here. Kyle, do you think most people want to be entrepreneurs, or do they want the lifestyle they see on IG? Well, the lifestyle you're seeing on IG probably isn't really the lifestyle, right? Because the lifestyle of an entrepreneur and a founder is typically a difficult one. I think that there has been a lot of, glorification of like be your own boss type stuff. I think a lot of that is more like service-based people that kind of live that life of just posting all day and saying that they work for themselves from home and, make all this money or whatever. Typically, those are more like service-based type things where it's just that person. It's typically not people building an entire company. When you're building an entire company, you have staff to worry about and payroll and offices and, all this type of stuff typically when you're actually successfully running a company. So those people kind of chilling all day and just saying, oh, I work from home for 2 hours a day and I make a fortune or whatever. Typically, it's more like a personal thing. They're not actually building an entire company, which is totally fine. But it's just a little bit different than what we're talking about here mostly, which is definitely more of a plugged in, more than full-time, type situation. But as we know, not everything as it seems on the internet. So don't believe everything you see in general. Let's see here. Anthony's asking, should new founders be allowed to touch branding and design, or should someone physically stop them until they get customers first? Oh, no, I think that they should. I think that goes back to what we just talked about as far as, having AI do graphic design. Personally, I think that's what's one of the most empowering things that's been happening for entrepreneurs and founders of companies is that you can now do the design yourself, and you can tell AI to do it exactly how you want it, and then you can edit it and tell it to change it and stuff like that, so that you don't have to rely on graphic design people. Now, getting some help and input from people would be good, even if you're just sending it to friends and family. Once you make the logo that you like, I would say take your vision for the design, for the logo, for the color schemes, for the website, whatever it is. I would say use your vision of what you want it to be, and then use AI to make that. Tell AI what you want and keep telling it over and over again until it makes it how you want. And then I would send a couple of versions of that to your friends and family and ask them for feedback on it. Or I've sent that to a few friends and family and say, hey, which one of these 3 to 5 logos do you like the best, and see which one people say. So, creative people are good to have an eye on things too. If you know a great creative person, you could send them to them and say, hey, which one do you think people would respond to the most? So, just use the tools that you have, and keep in mind, if you tell AI that you want it to be a graphic that people are likely to respond to, or if you tell them what type of business you're in, it will typically tell you what type of color schemes would be best for that business, because colors, as far as logos go, represent different things. They give people different feelings of either excitement or trust or, whatever it is. There's a whole chart of that. And so, AI is typically going to make the best thing for you. You just need to tell it what to do. So, Anthony, it's a good question, but I would say no, absolutely not. You should absolutely touch your designs. You should everything, at least from the start. And you can do that for free with AI of seconds. It's really just about putting the work in, because getting one design from AI is one thing and just being stuck with it. What I'm talking about is doing hundreds of designs by AI and tweaking it and tweaking the prompts and, doing all this stuff until you get exactly what you want. So, maybe it's, maybe it takes you an hour, but you get the 5 great logos that you like looking exactly how you want. Then you could send those to your friends and family or anybody that you know in the design type world and say, hey, which one of these should I choose? Which one do you think is the best? So I would just get some feedback on that. All right, Quinn is asking, is the whole raise money first mindset just people trying to skip uncomfortable part of selling? Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I think a lot of people are probably scared to get out there into the marketplace. It's never something that I've been scared of. And nowadays, I don't think you need to be scared, especially because you don't even necessarily need to get face-to-face with the people. Now, in the beginning, you should at least get on the phone. So if we're talking about something over the internet, remember, your business should be automated to where when they click on an ad, they're getting the auto email and text immediately. Again, if you don't have that set up, you need to set it up. Take a class, take a course, take my course, foundingwithoutfunding.com. Go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. We can help set that up for you if you want somebody to do it for you. But the key is that has to be done. You need everything automated. So when somebody clicks on an ad, made a text and an email, and then somebody needs to be following up with a phone call as soon as possible. And you don't have to actually do any of that nowadays yourself as the founder. So it used to be a lot more scary, I think, because you would definitely have to at least get on the phone or somewhere in person or talk to people in person or whatever it is. But nowadays, everything can be done automated. And even with the phone call, I think in the beginning, you should be calling your customers. But at the end of the day, you can always have a virtual assistant do it for, $5, $6, $7 an hour for you. And maybe they could, they can make 50 calls in an hour. And so if you only have 50 leads in a day, it's a really cheap price there. So, it just, I guess, don't be afraid to get out there, because especially nowadays, it's not like you have to actually get out, put the stuff together and put it out to the public, but it's not necessarily even, you having to be on the phone or in person or whatever it is. So, I think a lot of people are scared to get out there and they want to raise money instead so that they can come out in some kind of grand way where they don't have to put in that groundwork. But at the end of the day, nowadays, you don't have to be scared to put in that groundwork, and using AI and all these different tools can make it so that the groundwork is much easier for you. All right, question here from Layla. Why does everyone online preach to follow your passion when most businesses aren't passion projects at all? Oh, that's a good one. So I talk follow your efforts and your talents. And so, that's also something, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about that. Mark Cuban talks about it. Different entrepreneurs, obviously, I read a lot of books and watch talks from entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And I would say that my opinion on it is similar to that, which is I would follow what you're good at and I would follow what works as opposed to what your passion is. At the end of the day, you're going to become passionate about whatever works, whatever's putting money in your pocket, food on your table for your family, or a lot more money, like putting a lot of money in your pocket. You're going to become passionate about it. If you're flying on a private jet because you're doing XYZ business, XYZ business is going to be your passion now, right? And so I'm not saying for the money to be your passion, but I'm saying that if you've came up with something, built something, discovered something, created something that the market responds to and that it purchases and, all the things that we talk about, at the end of the day, if it's working and it's putting money in, you're going to be proud of it because it's yours and you did it. And you're also going to be happy and passionate about it because it's what you're into. I talked about this on a previous episode, me with real estate. I had owned Airbnbs I had owned a commercial property, I had owned houses, but I was never in on the business side of the real estate until I got my real estate license and my mortgage license. And then I opened a national lender and a Florida real estate brokerage. Then I started to get into the business side of it. Now, I never thought I would be into the business side of the real estate, but it was until I got into it and I had companies that were working and growing and expanding. And then it became interesting. And then I wanted to learn more and do more and stuff like that. So, real estate isn't what I was passionate about. That's not what I started out doing in my entrepreneur journey, but it became something I was passionate about because of making money. I had companies that were working, that was building and growing, and it's something that you're going to naturally become passionate about. So yeah, I'm sorry, who asked that question here? Layla. So yeah, Layla, I would say a lot, I forget who said it, but the other day I heard somebody say, anybody that tells you to follow your passion is already rich. And I think kind of is some truth to that, right? It's nice. It's easy to be rich and say, yeah, passion. But at the end of the day, you probably should be following your efforts as far as what work into and following what works. And you should be putting your work into what works, right? So you should be seeing what works. You should be following the work with your efforts. That's where you should be putting your efforts into. And you should be following your efforts. At the end of the day, what is working? And put in the work to make it work more. And I promise you, when it works effectively and efficiently, and especially when that equals money, you will become passionate about that. I do truly feel that. So with that being said, looks like today is over. If you do have any other questions, feel free to DM them to me or to us at Founding Without Funding. And go ahead and go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book or the course to go more in depth. And we will see you tomorrow. We do stream this live at 12 p.m. Eastern time every week.